What do you know to be absolutely true?
Death and taxes.
Ooh, the two biggies.
I got that
Well, I could say men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. It's a Jason quote.
I got that
Dysh. Dysh. Dysh.
I got that
Dysh. Dysh.
Hey y'all, it's Onika,
And J.R.
and you are dishing with Dainty Dish. How you doing, JR?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. What have you been up to lately? I'm always interested in knowing what's going on in the world of JR.
I know you want to put my business on the internet.
Yep, that's basically the point.
Okay, well, so far I'm having a party.
Ooh,
And you're not invited.
I know. And it's an ouch, guys. It's an ouchie. Ouchie.
Not really. I just don't want you there.
Oh, fair enough.
You know, I'm allowed to have people in my life that aren't you.
That's fair. We spend enough time together.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm having a party. So I got some chips behind me. That's it. That's what's new.
Those are some serious chips. I'm looking at them now, and it's making me a little hungry. But
Oh.
I'm not invited to the party, so it's okay. I won't have any chips.
Yep. So how are you?
I'm doing well. I had mental health day today, and it went well. My new therapist, is working out. She's kind of awesome. To be quite honest with you, she had me thinking about a lot of things. You know, in preparation actually for this podcast, I had come up with some ideas on
Okay.
things to
Well,
talk about.
Typically, that's what you do.
That's what I do, but this time it kind of hit home for me. Today we're going to talk about grief and core beliefs.
Okay.
And we're going to start with grief. I've been feeling low lately. It happens around this time of the year. Christmas is a rough time for me because my grandma passed on my birthday. It was 14 years ago. I know it was a very long time ago, and I get that, maybe I shouldn't feel some type of ways on her death date, but I often do. I remember when, I honestly remember it like it was yesterday. My birthday came and went. I went to Moxie's with some of my homegirls. They gave me gifts. I was laughing and having a great time while my whole family was falling apart, realizing that my grandmother had passed away. And I was to find out the next day. And I dropped down. I literally lost my shit after that. What I didn't see coming actually after the passing of my grandma Elvira was the passing 8 months later of my grandma Elaine. So now I was grieving 2 losses instead of 1 loss. And the 1 loss has presented as challenges. I was really deep into a depression, and not just because at the time of the season. I think, I was in school, I was in my 4th year. I didn't want to do any homework. I didn't want to go to class. I just was deeply, profoundly depressed over the loss of this woman who was so very important to me. And as I said, it presented a lot of challenges. And then there goes my second grandmother, and JR, let me tell you, after that death, I spiraled into a complete abyss. I started heavily abusing drugs. I was not being responsible in my job because I was using drugs at my job. I'd already been diagnosed with depression, but this was a depression that I'd never felt before. This is what I think people would call a situational depression, and I'd never gone through something like this. I'm not sure if you ever have, but I just feel like when these 2 women passed on, a part of me passed with them. One of them was a tough old bird. My grandma Elaine was a tough old bird. She used to kind of give me a hard time, through life. She was always a harder woman, but Elvira was soft. And she had a soft spot for me. And she would make me feel just worthy and worthwhile. And she would make me feel like I was going to accomplish and do big things and great things. And she made me feel safe in a world that had often made me feel unsafe. And that's just what she meant to me. And I went through all of the stages. Denial that it was happening. Anger because though she was 81 or 82 years old at the time, if I can remember correctly, how could she be taken away from me before the birth of my first child? Or at the time I had wanted a wedding. Like, all very weird and selfish thoughts, but I just assumed she'd live forever. That was a child's assumption. That was a child's dream, that grandma would live forever, and she didn't. And when she didn't, life for me kind of took a turn. It essentially fell apart. So I wanted to talk about grief today, and I wanted to get into a conversation about grief and can it ever be considered a mental health issue? In my opinion, I think it should be. There's no set amount of time a person can take to get over a situation. You know, there's no right way or right thing to say to that person to snap them out of the depression that they get into, because after bargaining, which I don't always understand bargaining, I'm not going to lie to you, like that one kind of confuses me, but there's depression. And when you get into that funk, you get into that depression, you feel lost in yourself. You feel lost in your grief. You pine for that person, hoping that somehow by some miracle of whatever God you believe in, they're going to come back. You see them on the street corner. You see them in your dreams. You feel their presence constantly, like, I don't know, like a hand on your shoulder. You miss their hugs. You miss their smells. You miss their presence. And it's hard. It's a really hard thing to go through. The loss of a person that you love, it's traumatic. And from that trauma can come things like anxiety and depression. You're depressed because you've lost someone you love and you're never going to get them back. You're anxious because you don't know how you're going to live in the world without them. Especially for me, someone like my grandmother. And I'll be honest with you, I think her death hit me harder than Elaine's death. And it always kind of has, because we were closer. We talked every day. You know, she used to tell me, no one hugs me like you hug me. No one loves me like you love me. And it used to be our special thing. We sang together. We laughed together. You know, she was my whole world when I was a kid, and my mom used to have to go away for work, for nursing. She was everything to me. She was mom, dad, grandma. She was everything. And, you know, she helped raise me. She had a hand in the person that I am today. And I'd hope that person is a good person. But you know what? I'm not always so sure. Without her guiding light, who have I become? Who have I turned into? You know, it's just, I miss her presence. I miss her laugh. I miss her smile. I miss her pepper pot. And the closer and closer December 30th gets, my 36th birthday and the 14th anniversary of her death, I guess the more and more I miss her. I can forget for 364 days of the year that she's not here. But on that one day, I can't forget. She's constant, and she's ever present, and she's all the love in the world around me, and she's my hope, and she's still my confidant. I still talk to her. Doesn't matter whether she's here or she's not here, whether she's energy in the air or an angel in heaven. I don't know, but I can feel her energy, so I embrace it. I embrace her memory, and I embrace the love that I know she'll always have for me. So I guess I still, to a certain extent, grieve. I've accepted the loss. She died of old age. There was nothing I or anyone else could do about that. But I don't know, I guess the sadness just never goes away. And I just went on quite the tangent.
That's your grieving, I guess. I don't know. I have a completely different perspective to grieving. I'm more of a accept it and move on. from a young age, my parents were always like, we're not going to live forever. One day we're not going to be here. And I've always just accepted that kind of thing in life for everything. And when things happen, you have no control over, you accept it, you move on. Don't dwell on the past.
And that's how you've always...
That's how I live.
So you've never experienced grief?
I'm not saying I've never experienced grief. I actually can't think of a time period where I've experienced grief. Actually, I can't think of it.
Well, I mean, other than the loss of a person, people experience grief over many things.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that people don't experience grief. I'm saying I can't think of a time where I've experienced grief. And there's nothing you can do or say that's going to change that.
No, and I'm honestly not trying to. Is grief mental health?
I can't answer that question.
Well, there's a document called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders. It's called DSM, short form DSM-5. And they started this document so that they would be able to decipher what is a mental health disorder versus what isn't a mental health disorder. And there's kind of a rule in there about bereavement and grieving that states no less than 2 months after mourning can you be diagnosed with a mental health condition. So they're giving you 2 months before it becomes what is then known as complicated grieving disorder. So grief is a mental health disorder, according to this document.
No, I can't. No. We're not doing that. We're not. Nah. No.
We're not considering grief a mental health disorder?
No. I can't.
Okay.
Can't. No. If just because you gave that definition, I'm like, no.
Okay, so this is basically what the definition of complicated grief disorder is. You're experiencing your period of grief, right? But it's almost intensified. Like the pining for the person, the deceased, is not going away. Your inability, you're basically having a major depressive episode within your grief. So the grief is sparking it, is what I'm saying. It's sparking it.
Outside of the loss of a child, I don't see a situation where, like, I don't know, like, I feel like everything's a mental health disorder now. Like, it's just like, oh, blame it on mental health. Let's make it a mental health thing.
But grief is it's a disease of the mind. Think about it.
So grief is a disease now?
It's a disease of the mind. I'm using, and I don't mean to use the term disease as in like cancer or heart disease.
Grief is an emotion.
And emotions are of the mind. Where do you feel your emotions from, JR? Where do you feel them from?
Okay. Go ahead. Make your point. I gotta hear this.
I'm just saying you feel emotions. It's a mental thing.
Okay, now, mental... Because now I'm like, mental health and mental health are two different things.
Okay, go ahead.
Like, speaking of mental health from a mental health disorder perspective, where you're talking about the bipolars, the schizophrenias, and those types of things as mental health disorders versus just your health mentally. Like, are you just okay? Are you happy? Are you sad? Like, what are your feelings? What are your emotions? Like, grief's an emotion, and I can't sit here and like try and categorize it as something that is as I don't know what the word to use, but is as serious as something like schizophrenia. I don't know, because I'm looking. This is my perspective now. Okay, I live downtown now, and I live in an area that is a nice area, but you can walk in any direction, and one way you're in tourist center, tourist city center, and then next minute you're near. You could be near, the courthouse where there's homeless people sleeping at night. Mm-hmm. And, you could also be out and there could be someone who's walking on the street and talking to themselves, and if you're going to say to me that the grief of let's say, the grief of a grandmother versus the mental health of someone who's walking on the street, talking to themselves, yelling at themselves, jumping in front of cars. If you're trying to put them on the same level, I don't think you can.
I wasn't trying to put them on the same level.
No. I'm just saying I don't think you can. And just now saying that grief is now a mental health condition or disorder, it doesn't fly with me.
Mental health is a spectrum. It is a spectrum. And it's not a straight line, and it's not a circle, it's not a triangle. It's a spectrum. So, it is entirely possible for someone who's grieving, let's say, the loss of a husband or a wife, someone they spend 50 years with. Let's just throw out a number.
Mm-hmm.
They can experience a major depressive episode based on their grief that would cause them to then be characterized or categorized, as someone with a mental health disorder that needs treatment and that needs help. I think we look at grief and say, you know what? Put on some lipstick and bake a cake and get over it. You know, it's fine. The person died, the animal died, your life was destroyed, you know, this person's gone, just move on from it, you'll be fine. You know, you've lost your house. Just get over it. Bad breakup? Big deal. People have breakups all the time. Everyone is unique. Everyone reacts to things in a unique and different way, down to their fingerprints. And grief is something that is more and more being recognized as a part of a person's mental health. When you are grieving, you are not well. When you are grieving mentally, you are not checked in. You are checked out. And I'm not saying take antidepressants to relieve your grief, but some psychotherapy might help.
Everything you said there before with your sarcastic voice, get over it. That's the reality. I mean,
no.
You have to things. We are on this earth. Things happen that are outside of our control. They upset us. They make us angry. They make us happy. They make us sad. They give us all these emotions. When things change, yes, you'll feel upset. You'll feel sad. You'll feel grief. Absolutely. But the faster you accept it, accept the things that you can't change, and try and figure out a way to come back to some sort of normalcy, the faster you'll get over it. But when you dwell on things, because pretty much what you described like as going into depression and getting anxiety is the fact that you're dwelling on something that you have no control over, that you can't change.
But the fact that you're dwelling on it is a problem in itself. Like, so why can some people, like you, for instance, not dwell on things and dwell on emotions and dwell on events where people like me, for instance, will dwell? Does that make me, am I a lesser than? I don't think that's what it is. I think it's simply,
you're making a comparison. There's no comparison.
But that's what I'm saying. With people, there is no comparison. Everyone reacts and feels differently when it comes to experiencing a loss. It's a unique experience because they are experiencing that loss. And in that unique experience, it is entirely possible for major depression to occur. And that's things like feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, the loss of the ability to speak sometimes, or the movement, the slow movement. Like when I'm depressed, I move very slowly. I speak very slowly. I act very slowly. Like everything's a little slowed down and delayed. You know, that can come up as an issue. Suicidal ideations can come up as an issue when you're grieving so heavily and not asking for help or getting help from somewhere.
Remember, what I'm just trying to say is remember we started off this conversation with me putting out my bias where I said I can't think of a time I felt grief. So this is where this is who you're talking to, right? So, and I'm hoping
some of this stuff will resonate with you because this is what grief is.
But it's not a matter. It doesn't need to resonate with me because I've gone through things where people would have had grief. We lost the same grandmother. We're cousins.
I know.
Okay, so I had to experience the same thing you experienced. So
And you experience it differently.
but I experienced it differently. So what we're saying is we experienced the same thing. You're still grieving to this day, whereas I accepted it pretty much right when it happened. And for example, with our Elaine, I guess that would be the grandma that we share.
Elvira.
I'm sorry, Elvira, sorry.
Elaine is my grandma.
Yeah, I know that was a good one. Sorry,
Elvira.
Elvira. When she passed, so her and I, our bond was, she's always like, Julian, I got to get you to Guyana. You're going to Guyana. You know, you got to know where your roots are. You got to know where you came from, right? That was her thing with her and I. No matter what, for years, that was our conversation. You know, no matter what, if she's making me breakfast, that was our conversation. You know, you got to experience, because in me, she saw that you grew up in Canada and you don't know what it's like to be poor, and you need to know what that is, because your mom and your dad did very well for themselves based on where they came from. And you just need to get an understanding and understand what they've been through in order to truly appreciate it. So when she passed, she went on vacation and passed in Guyana. We didn't bring her body back. We all went down there. So for me, it was like a self-actualizing moment. And that's how I was able to say, you know what? Her passing got me somewhere where I probably never would have gone. Had she not passed in Guyana, I probably would never have set foot in Guyana. So for me, that whole trip, even though it was full of, you know, sadness, for me, it was like, okay, well, my grandma passed away, but you know what? I met our cousin T for the first time. I met my male cousin. I have no male cousins that are of my age range, right? Like they're either way older than me or way younger than me, right? Other cousin R, but him and I, we're still far enough apart that it's still not. Now as adults, it's fine, but at that age, at that time, that's the first time I had a male in my life that was of the same age as me. So like all these great experiences came out of that for me. So I turned it into a positive. I accepted what happened. As a family, we bonded after that. Every single person, I started seeing you guys more often after that experience. Yeah. So although all those negative things happened, positive things came from it. So there was no grief for me because all these great things happened. I looked at the positive side of it. So that's what I'm saying. Some people, I like to look at things in a positive light. I don't want to look at the negative. She's not here anymore. She's not going to hug me. She's not going to make me breakfast anymore. She's not going to... Nah. She gave me all these experiences. She said, I want you to see where your parents came from. I want you to appreciate your life. I want you to appreciate the things that you have. You know, so, and that's what I got from it. So, I don't know, like, grief, every time there's been a situation for me where there's been grief, I've always been able to spin it into a positive thing. You know, it's the same way your second grandmother passed shortly after. My cousin passed 6 months after the grandma. So, and that was like the person that pretty much outside of my parents really had an influence on my life and helped raise me. So out of that passing, well, I gave the eulogy. So public speaking, that's where it began, right? And I had a passion. I've never listened to it again. People told me that it was a good one. I've never listened to it twice. But they said it was passionate and it was meaningful. It was the first time I spoke in public, right? So I got something out of that. You know, I learned something. I learned to take care of myself and my health. I learned to start going to see the doctor. You know, like there's things I got out of it. So there was grieving. Okay, this person's gone, but they did something in my life. They were a positive influence in my life, and I will respect them and I will honor them by doing the things that they taught me and passing them on and living that way. And I don't know. I'm not going to dwell on the negatives because I feel like grief is just dwelling on the negative. Because, okay, like you gave the example of a husband and wife, right? Well, you're basically dwelling on the fact that they left you, right? Okay, well, what happens if you look at it and say, you know what? If you're a religious person, you can say they've gone on to the better place and they're waiting for me to come get them at some point. But I got to do maybe my job is not done here. So I might have grandkids that I need to spend time with to teach them something. Like I just saw recently, there was this grandfather that taught his grandkids, I think there was 2 boys and a girl, and they built this like log cabin in like 2 or 3 months. He provided them a skill, an experience. So the siblings got to bond. The grandfather taught them about work ethic and hard work. When the grandfather passes, you know, they have that great experience that they can pass it on to the next generation. They're gonna have nothing but positive things to say. They're gonna cry, they might have a couple beers, but they're gonna have that memory, that bonding time. So there might not be that much grief. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But I don't know. I feel like if we're gonna get down to it as we're talking, I'm thinking that maybe grief is just dwelling on the negatives.
I don't think that's where my grief comes from. I don't think I'm dwelling on the negative. I think what it is, I'm dwelling on the positive that's been lost. And
That's the negative.
no, that's a positive. The negative is the opposite of positive.
No, because
I don't mean the.
no. You're saying
Hold on, let me finish. So the positive for my grandmother was how she helped me try to reshape some of my core beliefs. I always grew up feeling like not enough or unworthy of love. And my grandmother made me feel like I was more than enough and I was more than worthy. So I think what I dwell on is the absence of that, missing that feeling of her helping me get through.
So you're dwelling on her no longer being here to help you, which is you're dwelling on the negative. She's not here to help you. Instead of saying embracing the things that she taught you and moving forward with them, you're dwelling on the fact that she's not here. That's the negative.
Okay, fair. That's a negative.
That's why I didn't even want you to go on your tangent because I knew where you were going, and I was like, you're wasting my time here.
Sorry about that, JR.
Okay.
No, but she did help me challenge some of my core beliefs. And that was the other thing I wanted to talk to you about today.
Okay.
In therapy this morning, I talked to my therapist about my core belief about myself. Because your core beliefs is, basic beliefs about yourself, the world around you, and, your everyday life, basically. So I grew up with certain beliefs. Like those who do good for themselves. And those who do bad for themselves. That's one of my mom's favorite sayings.
And what's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with it.
Oh.
Nothing's wrong with it. That's a positive, healthy core belief.
Oh, okay.
I've got some positive ones and I've got some negative ones. It's the negative ones that I have to work on. One of your things that you said was absolutely true, death and taxes. Like, where did you hear that?
My parents.
Your parents. And would you consider that a core belief?
What? Death and taxes?
Yeah.
Do I believe I'm going to die? Yes. Do I believe if I want to stay living in the Western world that I have to pay taxes? Yes.
So core belief. All right.
It's not a core belief. Well, the taxes isn't a core belief. It's a fact. They're both facts. Like they're both facts. It's like the fact is I'm going to die. The fact is if I want to remain living in the Western world, I'm going to pay taxes. Whether it's very little or a lot, that's
I can't say.
I can't say,
you can't
right?
say.
That depends on how business savvy, how good your accountant is, whatever. But yeah, it's gonna happen. So those are facts. I don't really understand what core beliefs. I don't really understand what that term means.
It's, as I said, it's a basic belief that you have about yourself, the world, and your everyday life. So, can you think of one?
But okay, now is belief and fact, are they synonyms?
No, the core belief is a lot of it is based on assumption.
Okay.
Because the core beliefs,
Give me a simile.
You develop them in childhood. Like, I'll give you like an example. When a kid knows a stove is hot, or one kid will say the dog bites, and another kid will say the dog is friendly. But as they grow older, they'll know whether the dog bites or is friendly based on their experience and not just an assumption. So if the dog growls at them, then that's a bad dog. If the dog wags their tail, then that's a good dog.
What does that have to do with an individual?
The core belief is that it's if this, then that, basically. So I'll give you an example of one of my core beliefs. Like when I was in high school, for instance, if I didn't get a good grade, then I was a failure.
I don't think I have any core beliefs. Like from that, because here's I also, because I read a lot.
You have to have some.
No, because little things like that. Like I read a lot of books as a kid, like a lot. So, and a lot of things I learned was that there's no such thing as failure.
And they don't always have to be negative.
No,
do you have positive core beliefs?
If you work hard, you will succeed, I guess.
Fair.
Work harder, not smarter. Work smarter, not harder. What goes around comes around.
And then you said, I think one time you had mentioned do unto others as well.
Well, that's just my simple
core core belief.
I guess it's the only one. Yeah, do unto others, do it. Yeah.
Your simple core belief.
I guess that's the only one I have. Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. That's the only one. That's the only. I guess that's fundamentally that's the only thing I believe in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with core beliefs also come assumptions, as I was saying. So,
Yeah.
if this, then that. So, using my grade, or even, we'll just use my grade as an example. So, if I got a B plus, then my parents would be mad and I wouldn't be successful. Like, I assumed my parents would be mad. And the core belief is that I'm not going to be successful because I got this bad grade, which is the automatic thought.
Okay.
So some of the core beliefs I've held in the past and I still hold, and that's what we discussed in therapy this morning, was number one, that I'm not enough.
For what? For who?
That's a really good question.
Just so I can get understand, because I'm not sure what that means.
I am not enough for my mental health to stay healthy. I'm not enough for another human being to be in my life. So relationships. I'm not enough of a good person that I will succeed in life.
You actually believe this stuff?
Sometimes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to.
Okay.
I told you this was going to be one of those episodes.
Yeah, it's real, because I'm like, because I think
Shit
like
just got real.
I'm just so different, because I'm like, if you don't really like in a relationship, if I'm not good enough for you, okay, see you later. Like, that's cool, no biggie.
I go in there thinking I'm not enough to begin with, though. That's different. That's like if do you know what I mean? I go in there thinking I have to be more. I have to be the best. I have to do the best. I have to win. I have to. And it's always been a positive and a negative. I mean, making the statement I am not enough sounds terrible, but it's been a positive and a negative because I've pushed myself to be more. I've always tried to push myself to be more, but then I was saying to my therapist this morning, it's kind of twofold. It's almost like you get winded and you can't push anymore, or you just, like, you feel like you just want to give up. I'm not talking about like on life, just like give up on whatever situation you find yourself in that's causing you distress.
Interesting.
You know,
So that must.
it's a constant. It's a constant everyday thing.
I look at it now and I think I honestly have to. I love my parents, because from a young, they instilled like confidence in me to like, no, you're the shit. Don't worry about it. Like not cockiness, but it was always like, you can't. Don't compare. My parents were always like, don't compare yourself to other people, because you don't know what the hell's going on with them. Just do the best that you can and make sure that you do better today than you did yesterday. And that's kind of those
are your core beliefs. Those are your core.
Oh, is that what they are?
Right there, the ones rooted in childhood.
But that's everything
that have served you in adulthood.
But that would be everything about me now, which is just be positive. Don't surround yourself with negative people. Those are just some things. That all comes down to just parenting, because everything that as a child I absorbed the things that my parents said to me. So my parents said, like the things I get now, like for example, I don't want you playing with that kid, right? It had nothing to do with the kid. It was the kid's parents, right? Like it was like, nah, they're not really the right ones. I don't want you, right? So it had nothing to do with the kid, right? So I don't know. It's more the parenting. Like, I guess my parents were there, so it's like at every obstacle, it's like I had someone to guide me, and that kind of that everything that I learned today. Like, you see the way I move, you see the things that I do.
I do. I see your movements.
But it's all because of the things my dad and my mom taught me. Like, my dad's like, okay, we had the conversation earlier today where you talked about, or even last week, you talked about how you used to clean on Saturdays, right? In my household, there's no such thing as cleaning on weekends, right? You clean right when it's dirty during the week. Monday to Friday, you clean, because weekends, we're having a good time. We're doing our thing, right? Like if someone's coming over on Saturday after, they could just come home with us and we're going to have a good time. So that, like, little things like that, like those actions are things that kind of serve me now. So I'm not getting up on Saturday to clean my place. No, my place is going to get cleaned. Like when you leave, I'm going to clean.
Saturday was clean the house day.
No.
That was clean the house day that Onika had to do because Bianca didn't know what she was doing.
Stop that foolishness. This is not the time to get the air out that nonsense. It's not. I just used it as an example because we talked about it earlier.
All right, fine.
Stop with that foolishness. You lost your train of thought, eh? Well, anyway, I was talking about how I think that my core values just comes down to parenting. That it's all everything is about the way everything I do is based on the way I was parented. My parents are gonna say my dad would always say things like you'll thank me when you're older. You don't get it now, like making my bed. That is one thing. So I had breakfast with my dad every day from probably birth till end of high school. Every day. And one thing he would be like, make your bed. Brush your teeth, make your bed. Brush your teeth, make your bed. And now it's a habit. Is that a core belief? It's just a habit that was
no,
that was
that's a habit that was put into you. But like the messaging that your father gave you.
But the teaching me to be tidy. Keep your space clean.
So keep your space clean is the core belief. That's the core belief.
But the thing is, it was my father behind my ass every single day.
See, like, I didn't have that.
Single like Onika, this is like it was literally I wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, then it's you make your bed, breakfast, brush your teeth again, take me to school until I was probably in high school and I go by myself. Like and it was just consistent every day. That was every Monday to Friday, like every day. And so that kind of stuck it. So now when I get up in the morning, I can't even function in here until I make my bed. Like I can't. I can't do anything.
Keep your place tidy. That's your core belief. I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have that. You know, mom worked nights. She came in early. She usually saw us off to school. But, you know, grandma was the one that made the breakfast if we were going to eat breakfast. And, you know, Pops was just kind of there. Like he was the report card guy. He was Mr. Education. God love him because, you know, I got my education out of him. Like he's the reason I didn't get into university, but he's the reason that I went to university. He certainly paid for it, him and my mom. But the core messaging that I got when I get a report card, for instance, was, and don't give me this is the West Indian mentality. You got an 85 here? What happened to the other 15%? And then it would be like a constant harping on or comparison to friends that I had that were on honor roll.
But here's the thing,
you know, Leslie got Cardinal Carter. So why didn't you get Cardinal Carter? Like as a young woman, I'm not saying male, female, or anything other, but as a young woman, you want messaging like you did well, but this is where you could have improved. That's the messaging that you want.
You watched TV and you saw Full House and the way those dads talk to their daughters, and you immediately wanted your dad to talk to you that way. That's what you wanted. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying your dad never lived in Full House. Your mom never lived in North America, had that nuclear family, that the dog and 6 kids. So that image you saw on TV that you so much wanted, that wasn't the reality that your parents were able to provide you. And instead of kind of embracing whatever it was they were providing you, you were harping on the things that you weren't getting.
But it still shaped my core beliefs about myself.
Absolutely.
It's not about harping on the things that I wasn't getting. It's about the simple fact is, when I was growing up as a child, I grew up in a majority negative environment. That's God love my family. God love my mom, my sister, and my dad, but it was not a positive, let's go ice skating or, you know, put you in some type of activity, or you were left to your own devices, essentially. Homework had to be done. Always. Homework had to be done. Homework got done. Then it was Kumon. After Kumon, it was maybe a half an hour of television. That's it. I was banned from television at the age of 7 because I was told a teacher called my father and told her that I couldn't read. But the problem wasn't that I couldn't read, right? The problem was I was being bullied at school and the kids were throwing things and carrying on when I was trying to do comprehensive reading. So they put me in ESL for 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks led to like 7 years of just not watching television. Not the important part. The important part is my father didn't sit me down and ask me what was going on. What happened? What happened at school today that led the teacher to believe that you could not read? What was going on? Instead, what he did was military style. He got me to go to my room, get a bunch of books about yay high, and sit there and read out loud to him until I proved to him I could read. I'm 7. I'm 7. So am I enough? Am I enough though? Am I enough?
You're sitting here and you're describing. Okay, so I've dated women of multiple cultures, and you're sitting here and describing the fathers of a lot of these women. Like he didn't say let's go have ice cream. Okay, no big deal. Oh, you got 85. What happened to the other 15? That's every Chinese, Japanese, Indian, Pakistani.
I wonder what some of their core beliefs are like.
No, but I'm just saying that most immigrants' parents, because you have to understand, when you come to this country, you're coming for the opportunity. So your parents are going to slave away at whatever it is they got to slave away at, so their kids have the opportunity. So you don't understand that when your parents are saying the only way to get out in this country is through education. So why do you think a lot of immigrant kids end up going to university, become engineers, doctors, lawyers, all the professionals where they make good money? Because their parents were like, this is the only way that we're going to prosper in this country. I came here to give you this opportunity. I need you to take this opportunity and run with it. So they're doing their best. If their best wasn't good enough, that's unfortunate. But I don't know. I hate when we get into this situation where it's always the negative. You're always rolling on the negative of with the things that your father didn't provide you or whatever. Look at the positives. Stop dwelling on the negatives. Like, if you start looking at the positives, you'll start seeing all the opportunities that you were provided and that you still have and that you could still pursue. You know any people out there that didn't have a father that could pay for university? You know people that have OSEP debt that they'll never pay off?
And I said thank you. You're asking, you're saying that I don't notice it. I do notice it.
Okay, but you're constantly dwelling on the negatives. Whenever a conversation comes up where you can dwell on the negative, you're dwelling on the negative.
Oh, can I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay. I was giving you an example of why my core beliefs are so messed up. And my core beliefs are, in fact, negative. They're negative.
Okay.
I admit that they're negative, and I need to turn them around into the positive. That's what we discussed this morning in therapy, working on that for a little while.
So let's talk positive.
So
let's speak positive.
My positive core belief would be I have something worthwhile to give to this world.
Okay, and now what are you doing to give that? What are you doing to grow that? What are you doing to make that happen?
I'd like to think I'm doing this podcast for one of the reasons.
No, don't say you think. What are you doing? I'm asking you a question.
Right,
answer my question.
Okay.
What are you doing?
I'm working on this podcast.
What else are you doing?
I'm writing a book.
What else are you doing?
I'm working on my website.
What else are you doing?
I'm hopefully joining a panel that talks about mental health in the government. That's
what else are you doing?
An opportunity that came up. I'm going to therapy.
What else are you doing?
I'm seeing my social worker on a regular basis.
What else are you doing?
I'm taking care of myself. I'm starting to exercise.
And what else are you doing?
Eating healthy.
And?
Listening to you.
Well, that one's cool, but but like look at it. But look, you look at all these positive things that you were able to name off. Stay in that positive space. Like, I know we're talking about mental health all the time. How do you stay mentally healthy? Mentally healthy? Is that, I don't know if that's the right words.
Mentally healthy.
We're gonna pretend those are the right words. Try and stay in a positive space all the time. Like, I'm gonna come across kind of a little jerky in this, but like, it's because I kind of want to get you to be in the positive space. Like, when you come here, sometimes you're in a very positive space. Like today when you got here, I felt like you were in a positive space. Mm-hmm. And I know that I asked you some questions and it kind of dipped the energy because I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Mm-hmm. But let's just stay positive. Like, when you stay positive, look at the good things. Look what happens now with you and your dad. You're going home for Christmas.
I'm going home for Christmas, guys.
Right? So, I mean, these
he
are all positive.
About me too.
That's a positive thing, right? So that's all positive.
I'm gonna ask him how to cook curry. Let him teach me for Christmas.
See? Look at that. So now on top of that, you're going to get a moment where you get to bond with your father. Your father's probably one of the best cooks I know. Mm-hmm. And
he's good.
As in, I'll eat anything he cooks. And that's very rare for me to eat something that eat from people. You know this, right? So Look at that. You're gonna have a bonding moment. You're gonna have a skill. See, look at it. Okay, it didn't happen when you were 4, because
But
he
it's
didn't
happening
know, because he didn't know. He wasn't aware of it. But you know what the cool thing is? He's got a granddaughter now that he's spending time with, and he understands, oh, girls need male influences. They need their fathers. So he's being a great grandfather to her. She loves him to death, right?
Amazing.
And with that, he's learning of the things that he missed out with you, and he's actually making a step to take the time to do it. That's positive. So, okay, it's better late than never, right?
Yeah.
At least you have this opportunity. So that's a positive thing for your mental health. Because I'm pretty sure you're gonna be able to come back, and I might even eat your curry after he teaches you how to cook it. Right? Because right now I'm not touching it. But when he's done, when he puts his magic fingers on that, maybe I'll give it a try. Right? But see, look at that, positive.
Yeah. Well, with that said, that has been the dish of the day. If you guys want to reach out to us and tell us about some of your core beliefs, and share your grief with us if you've ever experienced loss, and some of your favorite things about that person or pet, if it's a pet, person or pet.
Oh my goodness.
And we would love to hear from you. JR, tell them how they can reach us.
Absolutely. You can reach us at dysh, dysh, at daintydish.com. You can check us out on the website, daintydish.com. You can see DAINTYDYSH.com. You can check out Onika and more stuff that she spoke about earlier on her writing, because that's one of the positive things that she is doing right now. Even though some of the writing might be expressing the negative stuff, but it's getting it out there, so it's positive.
It's positive.
It's positive at the same time. And also, if you want to check her out on Instagram, it's Best of Onika. Twitter is Onika Dainty. And if you want to check me out on Instagram, I am Best of J.R. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts,
Give us 5, you deserve 5.
we truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you're listening to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, thank you so much. We truly appreciate you. To our listeners down in Texas, thank you so much. To our listeners in Florida, thank you so much. California, thank you so much. New York, New Jersey, thank you so much. Ontario, I think there's some in BC. Thank you so much. And the UK, of course. Thank you so much for listening. We truly appreciate it. Thank you. That's it for me.
Like I said, y'all, that has been the dish of the day. I hope you guys have yourselves a very, very, very happy hump day.